What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And joining me today, Chris, Fedor, cleveland.com Cavs beat reporter, and Jimmy Watkins, cleveland.com's columnist. And we are here to talk to you guys about Cavs Media Day. Training camp is one day away, but before the Cavs traveled to IMG Academy in Florida, they had Media Day at Rocket Arena, where they had multiple different opportunities to talk to reporters, insiders, you name it. They were giving us the inside scoop on what they were doing this summer, how it went, and what they learned about themselves, about this team coming into the 2025-2026 season. Chris, what is something that you took away from today's Media Day that you didn't already know coming into Media Day?
I guess I didn't know how forthright players would be about the shortcomings in the series against the Indiana Pacers. But I think that speaks to their maturity, and I think that speaks to their willingness to look in the mirror, identify what went wrong, and have an honest conversation amongst themselves and with other members of the organization about how to change it. And I think that's the first step of remedying it. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not the Cavs are going to take all the lessons that they've learned over the last couple of years with their playoff flameouts, and they're actually going to get them to translate to playoff success. But it feels like they're approaching it the right way, and it feels like they're approaching it head on. And oftentimes, you don't have players being this forthright. And I think it was really, really important for them to speak about the lack of mental toughness. And look, we've been talking on this podcast, guys, for the last 5 to 6 months about what went wrong in the playoffs and were they ready to compete for a championship? And they might have thought that they were ready when they won 64 games in the regular season, but were they ready for everything that playoff basketball entailed? And you got the sense in listening to them talk today to a man that they weren't ready for it. They were not mentally tough enough. That the playoffs demanded something that they couldn't possibly give. Donovan Mitchell used that term. DeAndre Hunter used that term. And it's tough, right? Because when you start throwing out these phrases, sometimes people are like, ooh, that's a nasty label. Oh my God, did you really say that about that team? Oh, they're not going to like that. But this is where the whole soft, fragile, that's where that reputation comes from. And if they're willing to admit it and address it and make the kind of changes that are required, that is a huge step. Again, I don't know if it's going to lead to success. I don't know if it's going to lead to a championship. But the level of honesty and accountability that they showed today, and they have shown basically throughout the course of this summer, and the hunger that they have coming into this season, I thought that was really, really important. And I thought that was really interesting to get into their mind to that kind of level.
What about you, Jimmy?
Yeah. Cavs went 1-0 on Media Day. Yeah, you love seeing that. I do, in all seriousness, though, I do think that Chris is making a valid point here, because there are teams who would feel this way internally and not share it. Because I think when you share it, you kind of do, you embrace the public pressure that comes. Like when Jared Allen told us a couple years ago, the lights were too bright for the Knicks. That was honest, and that was, I would say, accountable. But you're inviting more critical eyes onto your team when you say those things. There's a reason why the company line and a lot of professional sports organizations ignore the noise, and a lot of teams try not to give an inch in these settings because they don't trust us, the media, to not take a mile. I understand that. But I think if you look at it from a nuanced perspective, I think the Cavs are to the point where they need to confront these truths. And I think if you're going to do something like this, make a wholesale change about the way you approach something, as we're talking about your approach when times are down, I think you have to do it all the time, even if that means doing it in front of a microphone when it's uncomfortable to do so. That's clearly, I think the players scored more points here than Kenny and Kobe did last week. They sort of danced around and pushed back on some of these labels. The players embraced them. I like that. The question still persists, though, about how do you do it. It's great to acknowledge that you have a problem. That's step one.
Yep.
And frankly, we've been taking step one here for about 3 years. And the question of how do you solve it is more complicated. And the answers, when they got those questions today, were less clear, right? It's a lot of, well, experience is the best teacher. That's kind of the motif that comes out of this. That's true. Experience can teach you a lot. It's also only one teacher, and it's a difficult lesson to apply. So we're going to spend the next 6 months here trying to sort through what. Okay, you know you have a problem. What are you actually doing to fix it? And the other thing I was thinking when they kept saying this, I think they're right. Like the Pacers presented a very unique brand of mental strain on them. The Pacers are also now gone, and while that can present an opportunity for the Cavs, there's also going to be someone else, a different kind of challenge presented to them. So everything that they're doing, like I like hearing that they're in a direct response to the Pacers series, more conditioning, different types of conditioning that the Cavs are doing to try to prepare themselves for a playoff series that might take a lot out of them, right? That might ask them to go the full. I like hearing I like the idea of Thomas Bryant maybe being able to share some of the lessons from that Pacers run with this Cavs team. But the Knicks challenge is a different challenge than the Pacers challenge. The Orlando Magic, the challenge that they might present is a different challenge than the Pacers might present. So it's like a little bit of round square peg round hole here, where I think you have the right attitude and you're doing the things that you know best to do to try to correct these flaws. But what else might be around the corner?
I think that's all great points. And I think you got into something that all of the players kind of touched on in a little bit when they talked about the Pacer series and also not being ready for what that entailed. But one of those major key features was conditioning and being able to keep up and down the floor with the Indiana Pacers. And obviously, as we know, we've mentioned throughout the entire summer, the Pacers played to a different pace than any other team, arguably in NBA history. So that's different than what they needed to do coming into the offseason to feel prepared to get where their bodies needed to be for this next season. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell is in that realm as well, talking about having his body ready to go because there's an understanding of what he'll have to overcome without Max Strus and Darius Garland on the floor. Craig Porter Jr., Jalen Tyson talked about wanting to be in the best shape they've ever been in their NBA lives coming into this next season, so they're not getting run off the court, so they can help out. But more so to the point of the Donovan Mitchell conversation, him saying that he didn't want to be Superman, but also understanding his role. What did you take away from that, Chris? And obviously, going back to what Kobe Altman said a week ago, that he's already in midseason form.
I think Donovan has a challenge, and we've talked about this on the podcast as well. And I think Donovan's challenge is he is the face of the franchise. Success and failure gets laid at his feet. But for this team to potentially take the next step and go where they want to go and win a championship, it's him probably having to step back a little bit. And that's hard. Because if things go wrong, even though he's probably going to have to do less, he's still going to take the brunt of that. So it's one thing to sit here and say, I want to take a step back. I want to empower my teammates. I want to be this for Darius Garland. I want to be this for Evan Mobley. I want to be this for all these different guys. And I want to give them more of a freedom to be successful and allow us as a team to evolve. It's one thing to say it, but he has to believe that that's best for the Cavs. And he has to believe that that's best for him. And he has to believe that the other guys that he's trying to empower are ready to win at the level that Donovan believes he is ready to win at. That's his challenge. And I don't know what the right answer is. And even Donovan kind of touched on it a little bit today at Media Day, and he said, look, if everybody had the blueprint for how to do that, there would be a blueprint out there. But everybody is required to try and figure it out on their own. And it's based on what situation are you in? How ready are your teammates for something like that? But I do think it's going to be fascinating to see just the approach that Donovan is willing to take early on in the season when there is no Darius, when there is no Max, and whether or not or how much that continues to evolve as the season goes on and then getting into the playoffs.
I'm both very excited and a little worried about watching Donovan Mitchell over the first, call it, month to 60 days of this season. He kind of today he confirmed what we were hinting at last week when Kobe said he's in midseason form and we're already trying to figure out how to scale him back. He said directly, this new version of conditioning that he is walking in with, classic best shape of your life storyline for Media Day, right? Was in direct response to Darius's injury and Max's injury.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to read that any other way as he knows he has to do more.
I've got to
and
do more.
To a certain extent, true, you do. You need to. I mean, Donovan's leadership, whether that means scoring 40 points or not, is never going to be more important than it will be over the first 12, 15 games of this season. Just steering. There's going to be a lot of young guys playing, a lot of guys stepping up a role, and he's obviously always going to be the steadying force here. But to Chris's point, like I also like, in the spirit of accountability, I liked Evan Mobley saying today, when the ball doesn't find me in the fourth quarter, I need to go get it. I need to find ways to do that. I like that. But we all know, as we talked about over the summer, that Donovan's got to give it to him. Donovan's got to relinquish control. I'm at the point now, I think the Cavs need to lose some regular season games trying to do stuff. If they don't, sweet. Obviously, you'd rather learn by winning. But let Evan Mobley. I'm going to go over, maybe this is too far, but I'd rather go into total Donovan Mitchell spirit. This is exactly what he said today. I'd rather ramp it all the way up and have to adjust down.
Yep.
The other way, right? So let Evan Mobley do bag work. Let him dribble a lot, physically dribble. There's a lot of talking today about Evan Mobley physically dribbling the basketball. Not just like last year, Evan Mobley took the ball up sometimes and then would immediately pivot to a dribble handoff. No. You run this possession. Or we're going to throw you the ball and we're not going to give you a bunch of help. We're not going to run a bunch of fancy stuff. Just go. Is that the best process on a per possession basis? No, it isn't. Is it really, really, really good and important for Evan Mobley's personal development? Yes, it is. And I think that's where the beginning of the season should tilt. But is Donovan Mitchell's a maniacal competitor? All the reasons you love Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Maniacal competitor. Incredible sense. Kenny's praised his sense of when to take over a moment. Donovan, and I agree with that. I think he has a great sense of that. He has to ignore those instincts a little bit. It's going to be it's all counterintuitive, but I think that's all really important for what the Cavs are trying to do big picture.
So Donovan said something today about it doesn't matter where we're seated. It doesn't matter where we're slated, if we're first or we're eighth. And I wish I believed that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that coming from Donovan. Now, LeBron used to say those things, and he meant it because his actions during the regular season showed you that he meant it. He was willing to do those. He was willing to create drama. He was willing to create chaos. And even if it meant losing streaks, and even if it meant difficult conversations, it was better for them in the end because he wanted them to get used to being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I don't know that Donovan, and I don't think he has to go to drastic lengths, but I just don't know that Donovan's wired that same kind of way. I think the losing would catch up to. If you remember a couple of years ago, the Cavs were in the middle of a bad stretch. Donovan's first instinct was, I need to play 45 minutes. Even though he was playing on a bad knee at the time, Donovan didn't want to sit. Donovan didn't want to miss games. Now, that was a different situation, obviously, because the Cavs were fighting for seeding and they were fighting for playoff positioning and stuff like that. But this organization, it feels like, is in a different place than that a couple of years ago. And I think Donovan needs to recognize that it really doesn't matter what seed they are. I guess it does from a home court advantage perspective, but if it benefits them in the long term to have some short-term pain or some struggle throughout the course of the journey, that can be healthy and that can be beneficial to them. Like another example, and again, I don't think Donovan has to go drastic here, but another example, the first year that LeBron James and Kyrie are together, Kyrie had bad habits. He knew nothing about winning basketball. He could put up big numbers. He was brilliant offensively. He had a rookie of the year. He was living up to the reputation of being the number 1 overall pick. But he had bad habits, and he didn't know how to be a winning basketball player. So the Cavs are in the middle of a road trip, and LeBron recognizes it. And he's thinking to himself, how am I going to get this dude to understand his way is not going to lead to us winning a championship? What do I have to do for him to realize it? So they play a game. LeBron gives the ball to Kyrie, and for the entire game, basically, LeBron just goes stand in the corner. All right, dude, you want to play by yourself? You want to dribble out there? You want to go isolation? You want to do the things that show up on YouTube and that become internet sensations and stuff? Like, you're capable of that. I know you're capable of that. I've seen you do that. The Uncle Drew type stuff. You want to do all that? All right, do all that against the other team. I'm just going to go stand over here in the corner. And you see how successful that is for you. And you see how successful that is for this basketball team. And that was an eye-opener for Kyrie. That was an eye-opener for the Cavs. And that was a big seminal moment for the Cavs during those championship years with LeBron. And again, I don't think Donovan has to go that drastic. But I do think there has to be some of the, I'm taking a step back. If that means we lose a game here in October or November, then we lose a game here in October or November. Like, if that means I don't go Superman and try to play savior in the fourth quarter when we're down by 17, and it has to be a different kind of formula, then so be it. Because that might benefit us in the long run. And again, I think it's just going to be fascinating to see the approach that Donovan takes. He started to take it last year. He did, because he saw the brilliance in Evan Mobley. But when things got difficult and Evan was banged up and Darius wasn't there and all the things were starting to go haywire for the Cavs in that series against Indiana, his natural inclination was, I'm going to take 30 shots.
Real quick, I love this framing as LeBron as evil genius, who I think I might have some questions about his methodology.
Sure.
About what was happening.
Everything right.
Right. But the results, the guy just won the East every single year. And maybe some of the adversity wasn't manufactured. At times, LeBron had real doubts about what was happening around him. But in the end, directly or indirectly, he did shape those teams into the kind of warriors that they needed to be in the playoffs. And for Donovan, I'm thinking now about one of the quotes he gave. It goes back to this idea of, you know what your problem is, but how do you solve it? We were asking him in exit interviews, okay, one of the questions was, can you actually create the adversity and show the mental toughness that you need in the playoffs during the regular season? And what Donovan said in part was, well, you can't have any slip ups. Like, look at what Boston does. They never lose 2 or 3 in a row. I mean, that's just not true. Boston completely took their foot off the gas in like December last year and then flipped a switch. But regardless, this LeBron method that we're examining right now, that's not the way they did it either. So I just think like it seems like Donovan's natural instinct is like, well, what if we strive to be as perfect as we possibly can be, even if we don't get there, and this is like a very common athlete mentality, and by the way, a good mentality for most people to have. Even if you don't get there, you'll get high on the rung, and we'll see if that's good enough to get to the NBA championship. What happens though, if you're in a certain situation and that's what you want to be perfect all the time, and it's not going perfect, you start pressing and you revert to bad habits. And I think that this is a challenge for leadership in the locker room with Kenny, where to give rope, where to take rope. This is going to be a fascinating study in leadership from that perspective, because I think Kenny needs to take some rope. I think he needs to insert himself a little bit more and say, these are the things we're trying to get done. Evan Mobley development, here's what we need to do. Whereas last year was like, you guys run the offense. You know the concepts, but you guys run the offense. Now we have like specific checkpoints we're trying to hit, so to speak. Donovan Mitchell is trying to give rope, but his natural inclination is to take rope.
Yep.
His natural inclination is like, oh, we're playing tug of war. We're starting to lose. I'm taking the front of this, and I'm pulling. I'm pulling as hard as I can. Sometimes I'm pulling so hard that I literally pull a muscle. And that's that. I just think that he's so close to the right mentality. Like, what if, here's a question for an alternate Donovan Mitchell approach. You're in great shape. I love that you're in great shape. I love that you're in mid-season form already. What if you did that and took the step back that we're talking about? Not only then are you empowering your teammates, think of what you could look like in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't, you're battling so many of his natural, really good urges to do that. And I think that's fascinating.
And to your point, Jimmy, about Kenny Atkinson needing to take back some rope, I liked what Evan Mobley had been saying. And to your point earlier, like, it's going to be on him. He wasn't putting the pressure on Kenny. He wasn't putting the pressure on Donovan to step back. He was putting the pressure on himself to start taking initiative, being more assertive, being more aggressive, saying that he needed the ball, right? Or simply grabbing a rebound and running the fast break himself, right? And I think that is already a small step up, right? And obviously, Evan Mobley is still this soft-smoking dude, but today it didn't feel like he was mincing words. It felt like he knew coming in that he had to not necessarily speak up, but say was on his mind. And Evan Mobley doing that is already a change in what we've seen in the previous 4 seasons from Evan Mobley. And understanding that coming into this year, Donovan Mitchell also said something like, it's time. We just got to go get it done. It is time. And necessarily he was talking to the media and about a championship and all these things, but he also could have been alluded to, I know you guys have been talking about Evan Mobley the last couple of years. He made this jump, defensive player of the year, all NBA second team, all-star for the first time, all these things. But this is really going to be the season where you see Evan Mobley become Evan Mobley. And I don't know if we're going to hear the same line from Donovan as much this year when he always said last season, like, this is as bad as Evan Mobley is going to get. This is the bottom floor. This is where he can rise up from. This season, I think Donovan is going to be like, I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you. This is him. This is what we have been expecting, what we've been waiting on, and now it is time. And I think those conversations kind of went hand in hand, even though they weren't talking to each other, near each other, or around each other at the same time. It was just funny to me how they kind of coincided and what they were saying all went together.
I can't remember if I wrote this or if I said it on this podcast, guys, but Evan Mobley is different. And it doesn't matter if you look at him and you notice differences, because that's not what I'm talking about. From a mental standpoint, he is different. And I noticed this in Las Vegas at Summer League. He just carried himself a different kind of way. He spoke with a different kind of demeanor to it. And look, he's California chill. He's laid back. He's reserved. He's mild-mannered and all those things. But you can see the evolution of Evan Mobley into this all-star, into this all-NBA player, into the defensive player of the year. And he carries himself a different kind of way. And I don't want to say that he has a different mentality, because I think he's always wanted to be great and he's done the things behind the scenes to be great, but it just seems like he's more comfortable in that spotlight. He's more comfortable with all the stuff that come with being a star. Now it's got to translate to the court. Now it's got to be an all the time thing when it comes to production and when it comes to impact and when it comes to all those different things. But Kenny Atkinson talked about it throughout the course of last year, and Donovan Mitchell was talking about it, even though they didn't come out and say it in big, bold, viral quotes. They were hinting at Evan Mobley is learning how to be a star and everything that it takes to be a star. And some guys learn it right away and they can handle it right away. And other guys, it might take them a little bit longer to get comfortable with all those different things. And I think you started to kind of see the shift with Evan around All-Star when he was a little bit more vocal about, hey, like, yeah, you're talking about Wemby, but why can't I be the future of the NBA here? Why can't I be an MVP candidate in the next 5 years? And then when he won Defensive Player of the Year, his value was reaffirmed. His place in the NBA as an elite defender was reaffirmed. And then he makes his first All-Star team. Then he makes his first All-NBA team. And all that kind of stuff is like, yeah, Donovan's here. Yeah, we have Darius. But it's me. Like, everybody has been telling me since I was drafted that I'm the one. That I'm the franchise face. That I'm the guy that, with me, the banner is going to come. And even though people were saying that over and over and over to Evan Mobley, I think he needed time to process, okay, what does that really mean? And what do I have to be both on the court and off the court to become that kind of guy? And even listening to him talk today, going through the transcript, hearing the sound in his voice, he just wasn't timid. He just wasn't somebody who was going to be comfortable being in the background. Like, this dude, and I know I sound probably like Dr. Phil here with the psychology of basketball and stuff like that, guys. But really, like, everything about Evan Mobley, whether it was my conversation with him in Vegas at Summer League or my conversation with him at Darius's celebrity softball game, or the way that, he has turned into a two-way force in the NBA, like, everything about Evan Mobley speaks to he is ready to be a star in big, bold capital letters, and he's ready to embrace and accept everything that comes with that. And I think that's a really, really important thing.
I think it takes a trained ear to hear this kind of stuff because Evan is still soft-spoken and still has this laid back vibe about him. But there's just having accomplished all the things that he accomplished last year, like, there's just a quiet confidence that comes with that. There's a proof of concept now. And now building on it, the next step is arguably the hardest, like going from star to superstar or superstar to super duper star. But this is where I really think the Darius and Max Strus injuries, while less than ideal, obviously, can become sort of a blessing in disguise. Because now there's a legit runway. Like, and then again, another thing I'd like to see the Cavs be intentional about this year. I want Evan Mobley on the court when Donovan's not. And I want everything running through him when that's the case. I want just give him a runway to showcase everything he can do. Like, so to the point where you can use that as a proving ground to Donovan, like, hey, this guy's ready. And again, it's not always going to be perfect, but the highlights that are when he goes coast to coast, he'll block a shot off the backboard and then go throw it down left-handed. Like, that's going to open your eyes a little bit. All the work that he's putting in ball handling, he crosses over one of these big dudes, that's going to open your eyes a little bit, right? Him shooting off the dribble, looking smooth doing that's going to open your eyes a little bit. And then when Darius and Max get back, I think the idea would be it's undeniable by that point. Like, again, Darius and Max have always, like Donovan, been intentional about saying, oh, Darius says he's our best player. Max says he's the ceiling on that guy. It's higher than all of us. But I think along with Donovan, there's still everybody's like, okay, but we need to see it to know that you're truly ready. And now there's nothing else left to do except let him show it. And I think he's going to show it. He's going to, at the very least, show us some really promising signs of it, to the point where even when everyone's back, you kind of have to rethink about how this thing is oriented.
Yeah, and I think that's well said by the two of you. Obviously, we have to wait and see how training camp goes, how preseason goes. But I'm definitely interested, Jimmy, to your point of Donovan Mitchell not being on the court and Evan Mobley being on the court. Obviously, we know that there will be a game in preseason where Donovan Mitchell doesn't play. Well, in that case, how will Evan Mobley be utilized? What will it look like? Who will be running?
Might be the same game that Evan Mobley doesn't play and the other main guys stay and play.
Right.
Well, but wouldn't it be kind of interesting to see what it would look like if Evan Mobley?
Not in the preseason. Not in the preseason.
Maybe not. But we'll see what happens. But with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. Sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast, and the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.